Hello everybody and welcome to Final Play Sports Wrap. I'm your host Pete Lubar and today we're talking Big 12 basketball. We're now through the midpoint of the season. 9 games have been played of the 20 in conference, and today we're going to talk about who's doing well, who won over the last week, maybe pre-season or mid-season conference players, and so we've got a lot to cover today. Let's start with the games that were important last week. ISU on Saturday beat Arizona State. Houston beat Kansas 92-86 in 2 overtimes in Lawrence. An excellent win for the Cougars. K-State had a good week. They won twice. They beat West Virginia in Manhattan. Arizona State beat Colorado, as everyone has this year. And UCF beat TCU. UCF keeps hanging around. In fact, they've moved back up into a seed in the tournament, according to Lenardi. Baylor beat Utah in Salt Lake. BYU won twice last week as well, beating Cincinnati 80-52. And Texas Tech beat Oklahoma State. That was on the weekend. So Monday, University of Arizona and ISU played a basketball game that was absolutely incredible. The shot by Caleb Love at the end to tie the game, to send it into overtime, and then him taking over in overtime and beating ISU. A huge win for University of Arizona. They move up into second place in the standings in the Big 12. Kansas State then beat UCF in a really hard-fought game, and one in which they were losing most of the day, but came back and won the game. ASU nipped Colorado. Baylor lost to BYU, so not a great week for Baylor. Utah beat Cincinnati 69-62. Cincinnati is falling like a rock. They can't seem to win anywhere right now. Houston crushed West Virginia, and Texas Tech beat TCU. Nice win for Tech. And KSU beat Oklahoma State. So that was sort of the thing. Houston now has won 13 in a row. Texas Tech has won 5 in a row, and BYU and Arizona have each won their last 3. And Cincinnati, West Virginia, TCU have lost their last 3, which is not ideal this time of year as you're trying to get tournament seeding. And poor CSU is 0-9, or CU is 0-9, and you have to wonder if Tad Boyle's seat is getting a little warm. Clearly, CU is not in the Pac-12 anymore. Other than Arizona, I would say the other 4 teams, or the 3 teams that came over from the Pac-12 have all struggled their first year in the Big 12. So we got some really interesting upcoming games. Number one, Monday, we have Iowa versus Kansas. Iowa State versus Kansas in Kansas and Lawrence. And that should be an excellent ball game. We have on Saturday Texas Tech at Houston, and something's going to have to give there because neither team's lost in a while. A game of note that I think is going to be really important is BYU at UCF. They're both sort of on that bubble line, and a loss for either one will not be helpful. West Virginia is playing Cincinnati. West Virginia is sort of on that bubble line right now, and Arizona is playing at BYU. BYU really needs a win to get back into the NCAA tournament. So that's kind of what's going on. From a bracketology standpoint, if you're a Lenardi fan, number one, Iowa State is still a 1 team. So Lenardi's got 8 people in the field, 8 teams, and he's got Iowa State as a 1. Houston, who arguably is a better team, is a 3 seed. Kansas, who I would argue is not a good team, is a 3 seed. University of Arizona has now moved up to a 5 seed. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, they weren't even in the field. Texas Tech is a 6 seed. And then you have West Virginia and Baylor, both 9 seeds, but they're both sort of sinking. So we'll see where they end up. And then UCF has kind of moved in, and Lunardi has them as the last one in the field, an 11 seed. So a lot to happen over the next 4 weeks. But 5 weeks, I guess, including the conference tournament. But this is sort of what Lunardi thinks right now. If you look at the net, which is a key contributor towards the actual teams that get into the tournament, Houston is number 2 overall. Iowa State 7, Kansas is 8, Texas Tech is 13, Arizona 14. So you got 5 teams in the top 15. Only the SEC can match that. And then you've got Baylor at 29, BYU at 36. So BYU is a really interesting case because they're moved to 5-4 in the tournament in the conference. Have won 3 in a row, but can't seem to win on the road, and they've got 6 road games left. And so it'll be very interesting to see if they can stay. Right now, they're not in the tournament field, but they're 36 net, and so they may be the highest seed that doesn't get into the tournament if it continues the way it is. West Virginia is 41st. Cincinnati 51st, but 2-7 in conference, which is not a good enough record. And ASU is 59th, and they are 3-6 in conference. So I would say Cincinnati, ASU are not in. West Virginia, it's right now, but sinking. BYU is 36, probably not in the field, and then probably the rest of the field, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Arizona, are actually going to make the NCAA tournament. So I've been predicting 7 teams all along. Right now, Lunardi's got 8, but the last one in is UCF. So that's going to fluctuate daily. The winner of that BYU-UCF game, very important this week, and we'll see what happens. So let's look at the Big 12 standings now through midpoint of the conference season. Tuesday will represent the actual midpoint, but or actually Saturday. Houston is 9-0, 17-3 overall. Arizona now, as I mentioned, moved up into second place at 8-1 with that big win over Iowa State. Iowa State 7-2, Texas Tech 7-2, Kansas 6-3. And then you've got this group of teams that have sort of fallen off a bit. So you got BYU, Baylor, UCF, or BYU, Baylor at 5-4, UCF, West Virginia, Utah. Now Utah's moved up a little bit, but they're 4-5. And then Arizona State's fallen tough times, 3-6. TCU's 3-6 now. Kansas State actually won twice to get to 3-6, and then Cincinnati 2-7, Oklahoma State 2-7, and Colorado, as I mentioned, 0-9. What's sort of interesting is Tech is only 3-2 at home, so they have 2 home losses. But their road record is 4-0, so that's really strong in this particular conference, 4-0, and that bodes well for them. Houston is the only team, not the only team, but there's 2 teams that have had 5 road games in the first 9 games, and Houston is 5-0 on the road, so that's one of the reasons they're at the very top of the standings. BYU, as I mentioned, 1-3 on the road, with 6 road games left. So BYU, I think, if they can't figure out how to win on the road, is going to be in a bit of trouble down the stretch here. Let's talk about the players. So one of the things I like to do is look at the middle of the season and see which players would be first team Big 12, which teams would be second team Big 12. It's so hard in this conference. There are so many good players and there's so many teams that it's just really hard, and I'm sure I'm going to leave off somebody. But I like to compare this to what the media and the coaches decide at the end of the year. So with that, I'm going to start with Curtis Jones from Iowa State, guard, 18.1 points per game. He's a guard. I'm going to go with Hunter Dickinson, the center from Kansas, 16.3 and 9.9 rebounds. He's second in rebounding in the conference. JT Toppin, the forward from Texas Tech, transfer from New Mexico, 16.3 points, 8.9 rebounds, so very strong first season for him at Texas Tech. And then I like Caleb Love, the guard from Arizona, 15.7 points per game. And my last pick for the first team is Javon Small, the guard from West Virginia, at 19.1 points per game, leads the conference in scoring. So my second team, guard heavy, as happens to be in many of the conferences, but I'm going to start with Keyshawn Hall, the guard from University of Central Florida with 18.0 points. And then I like LJ Cryer, the guard from Houston, with 13.7. His stats aren't quite as impressive, but if you've watched him play, he's an incredible player. And I think someone from Houston's got to be on the first two teams because they're leading the conference. My forward would be Norchard Ormier from Baylor, forward, 15.3 and 10 rebounds. He's the leading rebounder in the conference. And then I like Keshawn Gilbert, guard from Iowa State, 15.6 points per game. And finally, Zeke Mayo, guard from Kansas, 15.4. There's probably a third level of honorable mention that I could get into. Not important at this point in the season. So that's where we are in the Big 12. There's a lot of good stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be exciting. I hope you enjoyed this edition. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube page. And if you need to reach me, my contact information follows. Thanks and have a great day, everybody.